could also talk about the special linen garments that the priest puts on as he puts off his regular clothing and ministers in the Holy of Holies on this day. And there's many other things that we can consider just in that first chapter of this Torah portion in Leviticus 16. But today I want you to consider this. If the Azazel, or the scapegoat, represents the Satan, or the evil and malignant Azazel from the book of Enoch, then how is atonement made for it, or atonement above it? As we see in verse 10 of Leviticus 16, it says, this thing, atonement is made for it. Is atonement going to be made for the Satan? What do you think about that? Is atonement going to be made for any evil angel? Those who are held in chains of darkness until the day of judgment? So these are those kind of things I always say make you go, makes you wonder about. So as we see these two goats in Leviticus 16, we think that maybe Yahusha, he truly came to set captives free. Isn't that one of the things he read in the book of Isaiah when he stood up to read and said, these things are fulfilled in your hearing? Maybe he can even set captives free like Barabbas. Doesn't some of the scriptures even describe him as not just a rebellious insurrection type, but a murderer? Could the Messiah actually set people like Barabbas free? He did. Now, I've seen Hollywood movies and all that where they picture Barabbas afterwards and all that, but it's not written. But I know that he could even set a wretch like me free. So if he could do that for Barabbas, and I think I see the two goats pictured in that choice, one for Yah and one set free out in the wilderness. But it's just not me. As I was considering this Torah portion here, I thought about E.W. Bullinger in the Companion Bible that I have at home, and I remembered reading some notes that he had in there. So I brought that along, and I'd like to read what E.W. Bullinger wrote. Many of you guys are familiar with E.W. Bullinger and some of his work, Witness of the Stars and such things, numbers in Scripture. But when it comes to the Azazel, or the scapegoat, this is what he writes, and it's very small, so bear with me. It says, this is the point of the type. The live goat was sent away not in judgment or atonement, but in peace and at liberty. All had already been atoned for in the death of the other goat, the one for Yah. Now he was free to go into the land of forgetfulness, where their sins and iniquities are remembered no more, according to Isaiah 43:25, and in Jeremiah 31:34. The scapegoat goes forth to Azazel, all enemies thus personified, Hebrews 2:14, proclaiming in fear of death, but saying, who dares kill me? It is the lesson over again of the two birds in chapter 14, 51 through 53, applied to the whole nation this time. It is a type of those who are risen with Messiah. Colossians 3:1. That is, made alive again in his resurrection life. Tradition teaches this second goat as loaded with sin and sent out to destruction, whereas all is atoned for and is therefore forgiven, and liberty enjoyed before it was sent away. Now, I remember you, Dan, saying at one time, how can, if it's a representative of the Satan or another type, how can it be atoned for? We know they're going into destruction. And like he said, tradition treats it one way, where they take it and kick it off a cliff and all kinds of things like that. But atonement is made over this goat. Just like Barabbas, such a one that we would think would be so vile, was set free, as Messiah is a picture of the other that was to Yah. And on the other hand, why would we send a goat out to Azazel or the Satan if we're not supposed to sacrifice to demons? Why would we send him a sacrifice? So just consider that. I'm not claiming to know anything one way or the other, but you heard what a scholar like E.W. Bullinger has to say concerning that goat. But we have to, I talked to my sister from California the other day, and she's telling me she's a New Testament believer. She's telling me she's reading the Old Testament for the first time and wanting to read the complete Bible. Praise Yah. But I told her, well, he said the whole volume of the book is written of me. And that's before there was a New Testament. And I told her we need to try to see not only Messiah, who's the head of a body, being us, but we need to see Messiah in everything, or try to, because he claims it's all written of him, the whole volume. So now let's consider what Yahusha sets us free from and atones for us. So I'll begin first by asking, who is Aaron? The high priest. Aaron has sons. He kept some, and he lost some. For that, I'll go to the Green's Interlinear version, and we'll read a few verses there about Aaron and his sons. I'll read first in Leviticus 16:1, just verses 1 and 2. Green's Interlinear, and it reads, "And spoke Yah to Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they came before Yah and they died. And said Yah to Moshe, Speak to Aaron, your brother, and not he shall come at all times to the sanctuary within the veil, before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, and not he shall die, just like his sons did. For in the cloud I appear on the mercy seat." So something went wrong. So the high priest here is receiving further instructions through Moshe. But let's go back to the scene of the crime, okay? Let's go back to Leviticus 10. When they died. See what that says. Leviticus 10, verses 1 through 3. "And took the sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu." Now we know Nadab means not only willing, or that, just like when you brought your gift for the building of the tabernacle, but on the negative side it means liberal. So this liberal one who was a worshiper of him, the Father, is what you see in those names. "And took the sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, each his censer, and put in them fire. And they put on it incense, and brought before Yah strange fire, which not he had commanded them," showing that we need to obey Yah's commandments. "And went out fire from before Yah, and consumed them, and they died before Yah. And said Moshe to Aaron, it is that which has spoken Yah, saying, by those approaching me I will be treated holy, and before all the people I will be honored. And was silent Aaron. Okay, so now we don't get all the details, but it seems that these sons, that they drew near to Yah in a carnal way, their own way. We get other things that tell us or hint at maybe they were a little bit intoxicated when they picked up that strange fire and drew near. But we know on this side of the incident, they're not supposed to draw near at all to Yah in the Holy of Holies. There's only one who's supposed to draw near to Yah in the Holy of Holies. That's the high priest. So then I got to ask the question like I asked of Aaron, who is Yahusha? He's our high priest. He has sons. Some he will keep, like Aaron, and some he will lose. Those that he loses are going to be blotted out of the book of life. So let's read some of Isaiah. And I'll be reading in the King James Version. Let's read a little Isaiah in Isaiah 8:11. And I'll be reading through verse 22. Because we call Abba Yah Father, right? But he has given all things to the Son. Isaiah 11 through 22. And it reads, for Yah spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people. See, there's a way to walk. There's a way to approach the Father. Say ye not a confederacy to all them, to whom this people shall say a confederacy. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. How many of you have gotten a certain look on the way you try to walk? Certain people try to not necessarily put a fear into you, try to convince you that you're fallen from grace for trying to obey the Bible. It says, sanctify Yah Savaot himself, and let him be your fear. Don't pay attention to what men say. And let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Yasharel. For a gin, and for a snare to the inhabitants of Yerushalayim. He's a little bit of a stumbling block and a snare to the Christian side and to Judaism. Because you're not looking at both sides of it, right? And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Bind up the testimony. Seal the Torah among my disciples. In my studies, I found that in the English anyway, this is the only place disciples is used, is right here in this verse. And you're supposed to not only have the testimony of the Most High and His Son, but you're also to seal the Torah among you. In the book of Revelation, what does it say? Those who have the testimony of Yahusha and keep the commandments of Yah. And I will wait upon Yah that hideth his face from Yaakov, and I will look for him. Behold, I and the children whom Yah has given me are for signs. See, the Father has given all things into the hand of His Son. I and the children whom Yah hath given me are for signs, and for wonders in Yasharel, from Yah Savaot, which dwelleth in Mount Zion. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, and under wizards that peep and that mutter, should not a people seek unto their Elohim? Should the living, should they seek to the dead? To the Torah and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. And they shall pass through it, hardly be stead and hungry. And it shall come to pass that when they shall be hungry, they shall fret themselves and curse their king and their Elohim and look upward. And they shall look unto the earth and behold trouble and darkness, dimness of anguish, and they shall be driven to darkness. Driven to darkness. Total darkness is being blotted out, like we said, out of the book of life. They might be burned with fire, like Nadab and Abihu, if we continue in our carnality, right? Isn't there a lake of fire waiting for those who are not saved by believing in the Son of the living Elohim? So let's look at some more sons of a priest that should have had a spiritual walk, and they should have been protectors of the way, but instead they walked in carnality. And for that we're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 2, and I'll be reading again in the Greens. No, I won't be reading in the Greens. I'll be reading in the King James. Sorry. I'll be reading King James, 1 Samuel chapter 2. And we're supposed to be considered as priests, right? At least of our own household. 1 Samuel 2:12 through 17. Priest, not approaching Yah a certain way, not acting a certain way. 1 Samuel 2:12, and it reads, Now the sons of Eli, the priest, were sons of Belial. You look up that word, what does it mean? They're worthless, because they knew not Yah. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came while the flesh was in the seething with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand. Got a trident. That's been in the prophetic news lately anyway. And he struck it into the pan or the kettle or cauldron or pot. All that the flesh hook brought up, the priest took for himself, ripping the people off, fleecing the sheep. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. Also before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, Give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. And if any man said to him, Let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer him, Nay, but thou shalt give it me now, and if not, I'll take it by force. Wow. Right in the house of God. I'll take it by force. Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before Yah, for men abhorred the offering of Yah. You ever heard that kind of thing? I'm not going to go to church. There's too many hypocrites there. All they want is money. These are sons of Eli acting this way. There's a way to do things God's way, and there's a way to do them in the flesh, a carnal way. So let's skip down to verses 22 through 25. It says, Now Eli was very old and heard that his son and heard all that his sons did unto Yasharel, and how they even lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. It's funny, I was just listening to a thing this morning, and the guy was talking about all these sexual sins that were going on in congregations and stuff. But here it starts with the actual priest, the pastors, doing these things right inside the congregation. And he said unto them, Why do you do such evil things? For I hear of your evil dealings by all the people. Nay, you shouldn't do this, my sons, for it's not good, this report that I hear. You make Yah's people to transgress. You're supposed to be teaching righteousness, and you're the actual ones that's showing them the wrong way to go. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against Yah, who shall entreat for him? Didn't the psalmist say, if I sin against God alone? So anytime we sin, we're really sinning against Yah, who will entreat for us and make atonement for us. Thank Yah for Yahusha. Notwithstanding, his sons didn't listen to him, the voice of their father, because Yah would slay them. Or it might be better translation, therefore Yah would slay them. Because as you read on in the story, these two are taken out. Yah's had enough, like he had enough with Nadab and Abihu. Because there's ways to do things, and there's ways that'll get us into much, much trouble. So speaking of this fleshly part of us, approaching Yah in the wrong way, in our carnality, let's listen a little bit to Paul in the New Testament. So we'll go to 1 Corinthians 3. And we're going to read all of 1 Corinthians 3. Paul the Apostle to the Corinthians, chapter 3. And I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual. Why? But as unto carnal, even as unto babes in the Mashiach. Kind of saying the same thing that it says in the book of Hebrews, chapters 5 and 6. That you're yet carnal. You need that spiritual milk because you're not ready to go on to strong meat. I have fed you with milk and not with meat. For hitherto you were not able to bear it, neither yet now are you able. For ye are yet carnal. For whereas there is among you envying and strife and divisions, are you not yet carnal and walk as men? We were just talking about a lot of that in the days of unleavened bread. All this envying and divisions and arguing. Instead of just coming together and studying together, we tend to get a little puffed up. For while one saith, I am of Paul, and another, I am of Apollos, are you not carnal? Our congregation's true. No, our congregation's true. No, our congregation. This is the truth. Let's just get together and discuss it. Who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers by whom you believed, even as Adonai gave to every man? I have planted, Apollos watered, but Elohim, he's the one that's going to increase, right? So that neither is he that planteth anything, neither is he that watereth, but Elohim that giveth the increase. Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one, united. And every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. That's works, right? For those who think works don't matter, it says you're going to get a reward for your own labor. For we are laborers together with Elohim. Ye are Elohim's husbandry. Ye are God's building, according to the grace of Elohim which he has given unto me, as a wise master builder. I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Messiah, Yahusha, which is our high priest. Now if any man build upon this foundation, gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest. For the day shall declare it. What day is that? The day of Yah, the day of the Lord. Every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire. And the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss. But he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. Isn't that kind of like the least in the kingdom talk there? You may be saved, but if you're not walking in his ways, you're going to suffer much loss. Know ye not that ye are the temple of Elohim, and that the Spirit of Elohim dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of Elohim, him shall Elohim destroy. For the temple of Elohim is holy, which temple ye are. Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, see, we're not for, well, in my thinking anyway, for the rapture people, the Messiah, pre-tribulation rapture, I might add. The Messiah didn't say, Father, take them out of this world. He said, they're going to be in the world, just keep them from the things of the world. That kind of tells me we're not going to be taken out until all prophecy is fulfilled. But anyway, if any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool, that he may be wise. We're in this world, but we're really supposed to be spiritual beings, right? We're just in this world having a carnal experience, given a choice on what way we want to follow and how we're going to approach the King of the universe, the King of creation. For the wisdom of this world, it's foolishness with Elohim. For it is written, He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. And again, Adonai knoweth the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain. Boy, if you look at some of the stuff they're talking about now, man, the thoughts of the wise in the world, I think they got it. I think they think they've almost achieved eternal life with the way they're talking. Therefore, let no man glory in men, for all things are yours. Whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas or me or Tim or Scotty or Dan or Carmen, all things are his. Or life or death or things present or things to come, all are yours. And ye are Mashiach's, and Mashiach is Elohim's. Man. Praise Yah for Mashiach. And again, we're warned of being too much of a carnal man. Of Paul in Romans 8. And I'll be reading Romans 8, verses 1 through 14. And it starts off with such a wonderful statement. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Messiah Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh in that carnal matter, but after the Spirit. But let's not go getting off track here, because we're going to see in a minute a little more insight to what that means. For the Torah of the Spirit of life in Mashiach, Yahushua, hath made me free from the Torah of sin and death. See, most people think you're just free from all Torah. He said, no. It says there, the Torah of the Spirit of life in Mashiach, Yahushua, hath made me free from the Torah of sin and death. Then he say, in his instructions, I put before you life, I put before you death, blessing and cursing. And you and I get to choose which one we want. Most people will try to convince you the whole Torah is a curse, but only the parts that tell you you'll be cursed. For what the Torah could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, because we want to walk in the bad part of Torah, Elohim, sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteousness of the Torah, got to say that again, right? That the righteousness of the Torah might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh in that carnal matter, but after the Spirit. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. You're born like Abel and Cain, or Cain and Abel, I should say, right? Born one way, but then turn into something else. Ishmael and Isaac, Esau and Jacob. You can go on with all these, Adam and the second Adam, all these types and shadows. But if you apply them to your life, for most of us, we were born into that carnal nature. And it wasn't until we were born again that we started to walk in the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against Elohim, for it is not subject to the Torah of Elohim. There it is right there. Neither indeed can be. So you have to have that touch of the Spirit, His set-apart Spirit, where you can walk in the goodness and the righteousness of Torah. But if you're carnally minded, you're at war with God. And that's a war that most of us can honestly say we'll never win. You want to go against the Creator? He just has to speak, and we're done. So then, they that are in the flesh, they cannot please Elohim. But ye are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of Elohim dwell in you. We got to ask for it to receive it. It's written in the Gospels, right? Ask and you shall receive. Pressed down, shaken, good measure, overflowing. Now if any man have not the Spirit of Mashiach, he is none of his. And if Mashiach be in you, the body is dead because of sin. For some of us, it takes a lot longer to be revived, right? Yeah, because we were so dead to raise back to the newness of life in the Spirit. It takes a lot longer for some of us than for others. Some of us didn't raise back to newness of life until a later age than others. And if Christ be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the spirit is life because of righteousness. But if the spirit of him that raised up Yahushua from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Mashiach from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his spirit that dwelleth in you. Just getting started. When he actually finishes the work, it'll be like that song Scotty played. When he appears, you will appear like him. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if ye live after the flesh, ye shall die. The soul that sins shall die. But if ye live through the Spirit, but if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live. For as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, they are sons of God. Didn't I say just like Aaron had sons? He lost some, he kept some. Messiah, the sons that God gave him. There's the choice. We can live carnally or we can live by the Spirit. The carnal ones he's not going to keep if we don't change. And I'll put myself in that category. If I don't change and I continue to live carnally in the flesh, he wants none of me. I'll be destined for the lake of fire. So they are the sons of Elohim, for you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. Well, I just went over one verse than what I wanted, but that was a good one. So we see that we must put away our carnal nature, right? Boy, I used to just live for the weekends. Party time. It was time to party. And then all of a sudden, I was touched. And something happened to me. Can't explain it. Set me down a journey that I'm sure most of y'all said that happened to me too. I don't know why, I just was going this way, and then all of a sudden I turned. Yeah, why me? Why did he call me? Many are called though, right? But few choose to respond appropriately. So anyway, we see that we must put away this carnal nature that we're born with. Gave the types and shadows and all those biblical examples. But as in this Torah portion, only after our death can we begin to become Keroshim, the holy ones. That's next week's Torah portion. But this week's Torah portion starts off saying after the death, and it starts getting into actual instructions. It's not just saying, I believe in Jesus. There's much more to it than that. He wants us to live a certain way and be a set-apart people. And the way we actually live our lives, it seems a little peculiar to some people. That you're sitting in here right now. I mean, a very small group we are right now. But they're all out there doing their thing on the Shabbat, when it's actually one of the 10. So only after we put ourselves to death, after the death, like Aaron's first two sons, and then he has two more, following that pattern again. The first ones are gone. Some newness of life comes through the younger sons. So after our death, we can learn to be set apart, holy ones. Acharei Mot and Keroshim. We can learn to be set apart, holy ones, by going to Acts 15. Acts 15 in Leviticus 17 and 18. I got you there. All right? Nothing new in the New Testament. It's Acts 15 in Leviticus 17 and 18. Because all they're doing in the new covenant, renewed covenant, however you want to look at it, or they're talking about things in the first covenant, which we broke. But now they're supposed to be written on our hearts. So I got you there. We're not really going to Acts 15. Because what we see there is in Leviticus 17 and 18. The starting points in Acts 15, they're all contained in this week's Torah portion. You know, you don't have to be circumcised, they said. But they gave a starting point. There's to be no blood among this congregation. You shall not consume any blood. This week's Torah portion. There's to be no idolatry in this congregation. This week's Torah portion. It was a very small part, but it says you shall not give your seed to Moloch. Right? They actually had temple prostitutes and all that. And the men, of course, would go in and partake of these temple prostitutes, and they would give their seed to that god that they were worshiping. That's part of idolatry there. So no blood, no idolatry. Acts 15 again, no sexual misconduct. That's in this week's Torah portion. It gives a whole long list. These are the three that I've talked about before that I call the three abominations. What you eat and put in these bodies, these temples, what these bodies or temples bow down to, what we worship, and what these bodies and temples are sexually united with. The three abominations are when you do it your way, my way, and not Yah's way. He calls those things an abomination. So we can start with those at that being our starting point. Now go learn the rest of Moshe every Shabbat. Yeah. Acts 15. So let's go to Leviticus, our Torah portion. And I'll switch back to the Greens interlinear. Let's go to Leviticus 18, the last part of our Torah portion for this week. And I'll be reading Leviticus 18, 24 through 30. And this is why we want to listen to Yah's word after he teaches us, after you die to yourself, you need to start becoming holy, set-apart people. So, I'll start in verse 24. After this long list, he tells you why he's telling us this. And it reads, Leviticus 18:24 to the end of the chapter. Not to defile yourselves with all these, for with all these have been defiled the nations, which I am casting out before you. And has defiled the actual land because of these. And I will visit its iniquity on it, and shall vomit out the land, its inhabitants. And you shall keep my statutes and my judgments, and not shall do any of all detestable acts these, the native, the alien who is staying in your midst, for all detestable acts or abominations, these have done the men of the land who were before you, and has defiled the land. Lest vomit out the land you for your defiling it. as it vomited out the nation that was before you. For anyone who does any of all abominations, these shall be cut off. Sorry to say, before it was all over, the land vomited out all the tribes of Israel because they failed to walk, and we failed to walk in Yah's ways. Even the persons who are doing them from among their people. And you shall keep or guard my charge, so as not to do any of the customs detestable which were done before you, and not you shall defile yourselves with them. I am Yah, your God. He says that over and over in his instructions. He tells us things, and then he reminds us, I'm God, you're not. I am Yah, the God. So if you want to be Yah's people, we need to remember that. He's God, we're not. He sets the rules. He's the king. We're to try to follow them the best we can. So, this spitting out of the land, well, guess what? What was will be, right? This spitting out of the land, it's a microcosm of the world vomiting out the inhabitants in the end times. Because as the land of Canaan had its inhabitants vomited out, as like I mentioned, the tribes were vomited out. As I look back at, I've said this before, what happened in New Orleans, I think the land finally vomited out the inhabitants when Katrina made everybody flee. Because we all know what goes on down there. At the end, there's going to be a vomiting out of the land. It's the meek who are going to inherit this earth. The humble, the meek, those who will willingly bow down to their king. But everybody else is going to be vomited out. So, there is a way, though. So I don't want to sound all doom and gloom, but we got to speak about everything that's written in Yah's word. The high priest's two sons die at the beginning of this Torah portion. That should never be. And if we're sons of Elohim, I mean, once saved, always saved, I don't believe that. We need to continue the course, continue running the race. Aim for that target, right? That's what Torah means. And it's a daily thing, being renewed daily. And along with that, we know that His mercies are renewed daily. But let us, as sons, not approach Yah our way, okay? Let's not do that. Because it won't turn out too well for us if we do that. But let us trust in the high priest to do his service to atone for us. Because that's the picture. It's the type and shadow that's written. That's the only way. I just seen in a synagogue, a headline anyway on YouTube, that this synagogue was having an interfaith service. Well, you know, we're told not to call any man unclean or common if they want to learn the ways of the God of Israel. But we're not to worship Yah in the way that other people do. There's one way, and that's the way He prescribes. So we're going to close by reading in Hebrews. So we see the type and shadow, but He found fault in them, it says, right? In the Levitical priesthood, we have a better priesthood, after the order of Melchizedek, the king and priest. Mother, the mother of Messiah. She was a Levite and of Judah. King and priest line. That's the kind of high priest we have. So even though there was a type and shadow back there, we see carnal man could not cut the mustard. He had to make a better way for us. So we're going to close today reading a little bit about that better way. And of course I had to choose a place to read because it's all over about that way, which is Messiah. But Hebrews 9:22, and I'll read through 10:10. And it reads, "And almost all things are by the Torah purged with blood, and without the shedding of blood is no remission. It was therefore necessary that the patterns of things in the heavens should be purified with these, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these, the blood of Messiah. For Mashiach is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself. See that you make everything according to the pattern that you saw in the Mount Moshe. Now to appear in the presence of Elohim for us. Nor yet that he should offer himself often, as the high priest entereth into the holy place every year with blood of others. For then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world. But now once, in the end of the world, hath he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself." I still say somebody tinkered with the scripture when they said Jehovah Jireh. I still say when he says God will see for himself a lamb, that it says that God will provide or present himself or appear himself as a lamb. And as it is appointed unto men once to die. See, like I said earlier, they think they've got it. They think they've got it beat, the wise men of this world. They don't think they're appointed to death. They think they're going to overcome it. And they're openly talking about it, how they're going to do it. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment seat of Mashiach. So Mashiach was once offered to bear the sins of many, whomsoever will. And unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time, without sin, unto salvation. For the Torah, having a shadow of things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offer year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect. Only the blood of the Messiah is going to make us perfect. Like that song said, we are going to appear as he is. For then they would not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshipers once purged should have no more conscience of sins. See, we're not there yet. I still have a conscience. It reminds me every time I mess up and I sin. I haven't been perfected yet. So the work is truly not done yet. But in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats should take away sins. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, Sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body thou hast prepared for me. Now, if Albert was here, he would be saying hallelujah too, because he really likes to point out that that comes out of the Septuagint. And out of the Masoretic text it says, you have opened my ear. But here it says, but a body thou hast prepared for me. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure. Didn't he say in another place, I didn't even want all that stuff. All I wanted for you to do is that you would obey my voice. Do things my way. Sacrifices for sin he has no pleasure. Then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me. There's that place I said where before there was ever a New Testament, for the New Testament believers only, he says he comes in the volume of the book. And there was only one book at that time, that's the front of the book, that it is written of him. And why? To do thy will, O Elohim. Above, when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings, and offerings for sin thou wouldest not, neither hadst pleasure therein, which are offered by the Torah, that law added for sin. You know, they never had the Levitical priesthood until after the golden calf. Before that, it was a priesthood after the order of Melchizedek. Because the firstborn son, he would always be the one who was the priest and king of the house. Then said he, lo, I come to do thy will, O Elohim. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second. Now, if I kept reading here, but I said I was only going to go through verse 10, when he takes away that first, which we broke, and establishes the second, he's going to put it right on your heart. Not do away with it, not abolish the Torah. He's going to write it, inscribe it, maybe deep with his finger right under your heart. Can you say the 10 Commandments? I'm joking with her because we got her doing it now. She knows them by heart. Yeah. You'd be surprised, I've said it before, how many professing Christians can't say the 10 Commandments by heart. Even paraphrasing it. Even the short version. And then we know they got the counterfeit one that another denomination uses. So we got to get our 10 Commandments straight, which ones we want written on our heart. Verse 10 to complete. By the which will we are sanctified, through the offering of the body of Yahushua Mashiach once for all. That is the one who goes into the Holy of Holies and makes atonement for us. Read the book of Revelation. Like I said earlier, you will see that you got trumpets, the Feast of Trumpets going on there. You will see him in the beginning chapter with the linen garments on and a golden sash. High priest on a certain day, the Day of Atonement. You will see later that the temple, no man but one can enter in. And then after that, you will see that he tabernacles with men. All the fall feasts are written in there, including these types and shadows that are in our Torah portion today, are written in the book of Revelation. Now, I still think there's elements or aspects of all the holy days yet to be fulfilled in the future, including starting out with Passover all the way to the end. But the book of Revelation mainly speaks of the fall feast. It speaks of the Lamb already as one who appears to have been slain, meaning that, in part at least, has been fulfilled. Now we're looking for the rest of the story to take place. So, that ends this Torah portion for this week. After our death, we have to learn how to become holy ones. Death to our carnal nature, death to our fleshly desires, and looking to the one who makes atonement for us. So, brothers and sisters, that's the end for me. And I'm going to head to Andrews to go gather with the brothers and sisters there. I hope you guys all have a wonderful end of your Shabbat. And I will see you, Yah willing, soon. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for watching a teaching from Emet HaTorah. If you are ever in the Odessa area, we would love to welcome you to our Shabbat service, 11 a.m. every Sabbath. For more information or for more teachings, feel free to find us on the web, www.emethatorahodessa.com. Also, you can find us on Facebook. Thank you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.